We are in for a real treat in this week's podcast. Someone I'm very pleased to say is a great friend of mine. She is doing amazing things with her coaching within the world of UFC and other mixed martial arts fighters, and that is Daria Albers. She is a mastermind of the mind. I've spoken to her many a time. She helped me personally with my mindset before I did the Between Breaths ultra marathon last year. And as I record this intro for the podcast that we recorded, I'm yet to take part in the Snowdon 24-hour challenge, trying to Everest Snowdon. And when this is out now, as you are listening to it, I will have either done it or failed at it, or I will have experienced it, which is weird to sort of talk to you as if it's happened. But as you're listening to this, it will have happened. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but one thing I'm very sure of, if I can take just 1% of what Daria Albers teaches to her fighters, then I know I am in with a fighting chance. So you're going to learn from this incredible coach. She's working with some of the greatest UFC fighters in the world right now with amazing results and building amazing resilience. And she has a lot of love for them, and she has a lot of love for you. And I know that I feel that love and feel very honoured isn't too big a word that she would come and speak to me again on the Between Breaths podcast. So here is Daria Albers on the Between Breaths podcast.
We enter this world taking our first breath, and sadly we leave this place taking our last. And what I want to do with this podcast is to explore what happens between those breaths. I'm David Jackson, Jacko, and this is the Between Breaths podcast. So Daria, welcome to the Between Breaths podcast. Thanks for spending some time with us this afternoon.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's always really good to see you. I'm actually happy we have a conversation today.
Yeah, we've Daria is someone, for the listeners, I'll let her introduce herself, but just to preempt that with, someone that in terms of meditation and mindfulness has taught me in a very few short sessions an awful lot. And I even use one of your examples, and I quote you when I'm guiding some other people, saying, my good friend Daria always says, this is what you want, this is how to observe the thought and what to do. So I'm excited to let people hear that firsthand from you in a second. But for those that maybe you're the sometimes I'm trying to think of a way to describe the you're someone that you could literally kick my head in, but at the same time you would show us the love of a mother that was a long lost son, and it's like this this dynamic. And I think the work that you do and the people that you're working with now in the sort of fighting world, just give people a bit of an introduction of who is Daria and what sort of work are you doing, and how have you got to this place? And I'm gonna kick stuff off.
Yeah. So I'm a mental performance coach and, of course, a mindfulness teacher. I have an education in physical therapy, psychology, and mindfulness, also systemic coaching. I did a lot of different things in my life. I love reading and learning and educating myself. I was also a professional fighter, a professional kickboxer for quite a long time in my life. Now I'm retired. I'm 39 in 2 days. I'm 39.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, 39.
Catching me up.
You know what? Yeah, it's a good age. You feel like you're finally adult. You know who you are, kind of. So this is what I do. I work mainly with martial artists. So I work with mainly with MMA fighters, but also boxers, kickboxers, and I have also some Olympic karate clients. So this is what I do. I'm also still a striking coach. So I do striking for MMA and the mental performance aspect with most of my athletes. And this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. And, people will probably, in the world of sport and whatnot, we tend to hear about obviously the performers. So in your case, like the fighters, and we probably less hear about the coaches. But I'll sort of say it for you because you're very humble. You literally, Daria, for people listening, is working with the top fighters in the whole world. So yeah, we're incredibly grateful for you spending some time out of. I know it's just a crazy schedule going all around the world training all these guys.
I realized, and I was, as you know me a little bit, so I'm very close with my mom. She's my best philosophical sparring partner, her and my mentor. We talked about that I have or the champion or the contender or one of the first three rankings in almost every promotion in the world. I was like, this is
yeah.
Former UFC champion, number 3, right? Like so many guys in the UFC, ONE FC, Glory champion, right? Cage Warriors, right? Like Ares champion. I was like, this is unbelievable. I didn't even realize, because I do that for 12 years now. Yeah. And I love my work so much, and I'm so dedicated to bring value to the people that I don't realize that sometimes, like what you said, like, yeah, you introduce yourself humbly. I was shocked about myself. I was like, I can't believe this. Can you imagine, Mom? I have like the top level fighters, like these are my clients and my guys, as striking coach or mental performance coach or both. Yeah. Some for one or the other and some for both in the whole world, like in all major promotions. Yeah. And you work so hard, right? And I'm so dedicated to evolve myself and evolve through that the world and the people that I sometimes don't realize that.
Yeah. Well, and I know that you're the reason, and you're incredibly intelligent and open with your help and advice that you give to people, and I've been the beneficiary of that. And I know that, and that's one of the reasons why you're also so likable. But at the same time, you are very humble. So I wanted to make that point for people listening, that whether someone is into sort of UFC or not, understanding that we're going to get some great wisdom from yourself today. So I thought it was worth just highlighting that. Before I go into the little bits of meditation that I think would be really beneficial or has been really beneficial for me, that I learned from you, that I'd just love people to hear firsthand from you. Mm-hmm. What is it that, for those people, those fighters and that you're working with, what's from let's say the striking stuff, go for the mental performance coaching, what sort of broadly, what does that sort of look like? What are some of the challenges or things you do? Where do you see the importance of it? Why, I'm going to ask you loads of questions, but in any particular order, like, why are people potentially don't really explore that? It's not like everybody has got a mental performance coach or a mindset coach or a meditation, what does that look like for in your world at the moment?
Usually the fighters or the clients, let's say, who find their way through their managers or through the network I have, since I'm a coach. I know a lot of people. Yeah. They find a way to me when they're already quite further up in their career, let's say, right? So they already know how the pressure, when really the pressure gets bigger. They maybe failed in some kind of way, right? They were always winning, and then they lose a fight, so they run into a wall. And they have quite good self-awareness also by then, right? Because they build their identity as athletes. Yeah. Like I said, they went through the up and downs, and then they realized, okay, that's also the path of a martial artist, right? Philosophy of martial arts for thousands of years. A martial artist, equally, it was always like the physical training and the mental training, equally important. And I think we lost that. And I keep saying that all the time. We lost it in our world, and especially in martial arts, right? MMA went much more about the business, right? About the physical part and the material part about it, went so big. And we lost this philosophy part. And someone actually, Rashad Evans, a good friend, he on ESPN actually in the leading up to the UFC, he said it was super nice, and I was like, yeah, somehow it's true. He said that I'm making martial arts about martial arts again, about the philosophy also, right? I'm reintroducing that into the sport, and the
Right,
guy,
he said that about you. He said that about you,
yeah,
that you were
yeah,
doing that. Yeah, that is
he
so
said
cool.
that right on ESPN was right actually really nice, and it's I said to him actually you might be right because I'm so much into this philosophy,
Yeah,
and I think we lack that in general in our lives. So the fighters who come to me, they already struggled, they already faced some demons, let's say. They're ready to bring their performance on their peak performance, right? This last few percentage of what is possible, and they're quite aware, and most of them, they struggle with nervous system regulation, with focus, of course with belief systems, right? Things we all struggle with. I think we all struggle with, like, how to get into regeneration, how to relax better, how to regulate our nervous system. We all have an issue with concentration and focus and attention, beliefs, right? Negative beliefs, this inner narrator, right? This negative voice in our head, right? So we all struggle with similar things. I think it's just when you put yourself on the plate, right, on the pressure into a cage, you put yourself out there. It's sometimes you get a little bit quicker to those things, to look into your shadows, right? And in daily life, you can hide your shadows, right? You can kind of move around the people you don't like. You can move around to situations you don't like, or you don't feel like comfortable. But as a fighter, as a martial artist, I mean, that's exactly why we want to be martial artists. We want to face the dragon, to face the shadow. And that's the beautiful journey about it. That's why I'm so passionate about it. Because martial arts is just it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful tool to self-actualization, to even to enlightenment, if you would want to call that. So, and I think the long answer to your question, but I think the people who find me, they find me exactly for this reason. They look for more. They want the edge. And one more thing to add, look, everything starts in the mind, and we talked about that, and you know that, I know that. Still, but we know that, but we still sometimes don't follow up with this, right? We focus so much on the material in our world, right? Not just the materialistic, like not just the money and the looks and the social media, but also like the physical training, let's say, or the physical things. But then everything, every idea, every movement, everything we do starts in the mind, right? Everything starts in the mind. The intention to do something, right? Creativity, right? Every movement, right? When you have an intention to move, right? It starts in the mind, over the brain, into the body, right? So I think somehow we have it the wrong way, right? That we start with the physical and move up in our careers, because we start struggling in life or in our careers. We move up from the body over then to the brain and to the mind. It's the other way around in the world.
Yeah, we may be. I think of it as like it's more obvious potentially, and more easier to work on, like what we can see on the surface and see what we can touch. But I think also what you were saying around like the being a fighter, or being in the cage, being in that like confrontation, amplifies anything, and there's no turning away or turning back or running it with it. Like you have to go and face that. I like that. I'd be absolutely petrified to ever be in a fight with anyone, but the idea of in my day-to-day life, it's too easy to just turn away and just put that over there, and like never, we'll deal with that later, maybe never, we'll see.
We suppress, we disassociate, we compensate with many different things, right? All the time, and we all do it. I'm not even excluding myself on that, right? I try to get over this, but it's just so unnatural thing. And for some moments, that's also okay to deal with situations like that, but not all the time. And that's why I'm just a few days ago, I was thinking, I'm so glad for the sport, and that's why I'm dedicating my whole life to the sport, because I was like this. I was anxious. I didn't like to talk to people. I didn't believe in myself, nothing. My mom, we talk a lot about this. She's like, you changed completely. Or the true you came out. You don't know, right? Maybe it wasn't me, and you don't know. But like, definitely, I made a lot of a big evolution in my life, and it was through facing all those shadows in the cage or in the ring. Because when you go into the cage, into the ring, you're naked, right? If you want to know who a person really is, send them into the cage and the ring to fight. There's no way you can play a role there. It's not. You can play a role before, of course, in the weigh-in, in the media, you can play the role. But the moment the bell, that's the beautiful thing, right? The moment the bell rings, it's you and some other guy or girl who wants to beat the shit out of you. Okay. Right? It's honestly, it's you with you. And here's the mirror. There's no way around. And you can see. And the thing is, why is the pressure so big? That everybody else sees it too.
Yeah.
There's not many other situations you can bring yourself, unless you bring yourself really into maybe when you go to war as a soldier, right? We're not speaking about this. But in normal life, there's not many situations where you can bring yourself on the edge like this, right?
It reminds me a little bit of, I know you gave me some mindset help towards when I was building up to do that Ring of Fire ultra marathon, and there was it feels like there was a little bit of it. That's probably the closest I've got to something like that, in that there was no fight against anyone, but it was just the battle to like get to the next checkpoint within the time, and then which brought some pressure. And the thing that made it, amplified it, was I had one in my ear, but two like literally in my line of sight, as in I thought it was a great idea to have two people film it because we were going to make a documentary, because in my head it was going to be so great and we're going to have all these good stories about it. And it was like, during it I was like, literally like, you're such an idiot. Why are you literally shining this light on and exposing yourself? But I guess it brought the best out of my wife more so than the best out of me.
Yeah.
But no, interesting. I was going to ask you this question later, but it feels more appropriate to do it now. And it's quite a big one, but it's more appropriate to ask now. For those of us like me and most people listening, probably everyone listening, they probably don't want to go and have a fight in a ring with somebody. How? I guess it's a two-pronged question. How do we have that mirror shone to us, or how do we look into it without having to go and put ourselves in the ring that we don't want to do? And also, what can the average person that isn't, the top UFC fighter in their weight category in the world that works with you, but what can we as the normal people, quote unquote, learn from what you're doing with those people?
I think the most is challenge yourself, right? Challenge yourself, and with loving yourself unconditionally, right? And loving the others unconditionally. That topic just comes up with me.
That's my favorite quote from you all the time.
It's just how it is, right? Challenge yourself while still knowing all the time, whatever challenge you take on, work on self-acceptance, right? On gratitude, on self-love, because it's the base for everything. And so it implies also this understanding, the philosophical understanding of like that suffering and pleasure, or pain and pleasure is one coin, two sides of the same coin, right? It is equally important for our life. But look, we live in a culture where the suffering is just like, oh no, I cannot suffer. We suppress and compensate. Again, coming back to this, suppress and compensate everything we don't like, which is not comfortable. We suppress immediately. We run away instead of embrace it, right? And that's a mindset shift. I go with a lot of my fighters on, because a lot of fighters, they go the whole career about like, okay, I cannot lose, and then he says, I cannot be the loser in this battle or in the sparring even, right? But when we go like this through life, of course, we will not challenge ourselves to the best of our abilities. We won't. We always have the brake on, right? because it comes from an ego perspective, right? It's the weak ego speaking, right? Or the inflated ego speaking, right? Controlling you. But when you cultivate self-love and acceptance, self-acceptance, then understand, okay, that suffering is just an inevitable part of life. It's the part for growth, right? We need suffering for growth, right? I mean, the brain needs it, the body needs it, right? We need the pain, the input, right, to grow. Right, that's how evolution. That's why we are where we are as humanity. We could be better for sure, but there was some evolution in us, right? So this is what we have to understand, right? And then challenge yourself. Once you go from this position of like, oh, it's not from the ego perspective. I go from love and acceptance, and being like, okay, let's go, let's do it. Then the challenge is much easier, right? And then the growth comes much easier too. And I think that this is something we really have to understand.
Yeah, it's a powerful message, and depending on where people are at in their mental state now, they may be able to hear that or find some. They might be notice some resistance to it because for a whole host of potential reasons. What would you say to someone that is feeling resistance from that notion of like challenge yourself, but through loving unconditionally?
Look, like when you just said resistance, right? It's interesting because I was thinking about that. Like we come to the topic of what is the relationship to the stream of your consciousness, right? The stream of thoughts and emotions and images in your brain and mind, right? So what's your relationship to this, right? So there's the mindset shift, right? That when people feel resistance to what I just said, because I was like this, right? I suffered so much in my life. I was a little snowflake, right? Sometimes it's okay. It was part of my evolution.
Yeah.
But I suffered and I had so much resistance. When do you have resistance? You have resistance to something, or usually to yourself. What is yourself? It's the content of your mind, the thoughts and the emotions and all those images in your mind. Yeah. So when you fight with yourself constantly, right? It's this resistance, right? So getting a better relationship first to what is like for the content of your mind, because when you, let's say, people have resistance to, okay, I want to challenge myself and go create some self-love and go out there and let's say be in my fullest potential. This is like because we have quite negative thoughts in our mind, right? We have some negative emotions about ourselves and we don't want to face it because we identify with the content of our mind.
Yeah.
Right? We completely part of the stream of consciousness we've thrown away, right? So now and I just also, because we talked about that at the beginning, right? I taught you that, or we were talking a lot about this, right? How to change the relationship of that content, right? You cannot change the content really. I mean, you can by time, but it's a deeper process. But you can change the relationship, right? We don't like challenges, or we feel like we suffer, and we go into this victim mindset because we identify with that content, right? So now by changing the relationship to it, by stepping out, by learning to observe, by learning to make some space between you and all that's happening in your mind, right? That is the first step to overcoming everything, and that is one of the main things I teach myself still, right? I'm still in the learning process, and my clients and my athletes, right? Because we are the awareness, and thoughts, emotions, body sensations, images, everything happens right in this awareness, right? So I think if someone feels resistant to it or has an issue, sorry, that was my phone, right? If someone feels that resistance, that is through too much identifying with the content of our mind, right? Too much. That's why we fall into this victim state. That's why our fears get so big, right? Because we identify with everything there is, everything we feel, everything we see, the images we have, right? All those bad visualizations we have, right? With a creative mind on the negative, and so I think in order, like I said, to challenge yourself, we need to work on changing the relationship to the content and understanding that suffering is very relative, right? You do the mindset shift about the suffering, and it's not like that you suffer and you're the victim. It's just like that suffering is just a concept. Same like pleasure and joy, right? It's a concept, and that we need to engage in it in order to move forward, right? You get a neutral awareness, a neutral relationship to what is, right? Instead, again, coming back, instead of fighting and resisting. Resistance and fighting comes from when you judge it constantly. You judge it because you completely identified with it, right? You step up, you create, which is hard, right? You have constantly sit in your meditations and in your exercise to step out of it, right? Okay, this is what's happening and this is me. And that is so hard, right? Because we feel it in our body. We feel the emotions in our body, right? We have those thoughts and those images are sometimes so aggressive, right? But it's a mental skill, right? It's constant. It's a daily routine. Same like brushing your teeth. Same like for some of us a workout or a walk, right? It's part of the daily routine. Your little practices, your little resets during the day. It doesn't have to be an hour. It's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Do it 2-3 times a day, and I guarantee you a big shift of energy, of the relationship to yourself, with yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I'll ask you and we'll talk about like breathing as part of the tool within sort of meditation and mindfulness practices, but from my own experience, like as a starting point for me of being like, oh, I can't sit still and meditate. My mind's racing. I don't want to do it. Like I've got more important things to do than this. Stuff isn't going to get done on the to-do list if I sit here and just meditate or just breathe. My way in was like seeing how the breath was, an important thing to train. And in a way, when you're poor at breathing like I was off the back of my brain injury, you're trying to do your breathing whilst you're exercising is almost too challenging for it. So you'd have to sit still, so the metabolic demand wasn't very high, and then you could work on like being able to control your breathing, breathe better mechanically, change that relationship you have with carbon dioxide, and help with the nervous system down regulation that you were talking about. And like I guess I gradually moved away from like I can't meditate to I need to work on my breathing, to I am feeling some benefits of working on my breathing, but I still don't really like sitting still, to actually I like the feeling I get and actually enjoy working on the breath, to then being like, oh, I'm quite happy sitting still now. What's this meditation like about? So I want to just encourage people and also pick your brain to give people some practical advice from you. I think that you're clearly one of the best in the world for this. And so on a practical level, where does the breath sit for you, and how do you use the breath, and what other things are involved in that tool and in that place for the meditation and the mindfulness practices that you're describing, or describe to us the practical application?
So let me just go back one more thing what you said, which is very, very a lot of people say that when they start meditating, or when they start their concentration or focus practices or even breathing practices, let's say when they do something where they have to sit or lie still, right? That's what a lot of people say. I can't do this. My goodness, the moment I sit down or lie down, my mind starts racing. But Jacko, it's not that your mind starts racing. You're just getting present with it, right?
You've noticed that it's racing. Exactly. It was already racing. Yeah, exactly.
It's not like the practice changes the workings of your mind and your brain, right? Or your nervous system. It doesn't, right? You get aware of this. And that is something. That's why we always run away. We run away. We all do that. Again, coming back, compensation, right? We rather, sometimes for me, for example, you have good or bad compensations, right? For me, reading is a compensation, thanks God, but it's a compensation. If I don't want to deal with the world, I read, right?
Yeah.
But
And,
it's still a competition.
what
It's a
you said
helpful.
before, when you're in life, you can run away from it. You can
Yeah,
compensate. When you're in the
yeah,
ring, there is no compensation. You have to
yeah,
deal with it. Yeah,
yes.
no.
So that's why those practices are so strong. So when you sit, right, and so I work on the breathing. I work, of course, on focus, concentration. I work on a lot about observing the content of your mind in different meditation forms. Insight meditation, also, like, let's drop a topic and let's see what is your mind like when you sit really still. What is your mind coming up about this topic with? But the breath, I mean, the breath is an anchor and an entrance point to everything, because the breath is something, and you know that, right? We always have the breath with us, right? The breath is like something you can always tune into. And it's the fastest way, as we know now, right? The breath and the eyes to turn into your nervous system, right? To regulate your nervous system activity, your autonomic nervous system. And that is why I think that the breath, the anchor, or even the body, like when I teach, especially at the beginning, I teach my athletes embodiment and breathing, right? Conscious breathing, but also awareness of breath. So I start usually with awareness of breath before I go even in conscious breathing, like changing the patterns, right? Bring awareness to the breath and anchor yourself in the present moment, because like a ship needs an anchor. We with to not get off with thrown away thrown with us with the stream of consciousness, right? With thoughts, emotions, just we get lost in it. We need an anchor, right? And the anchor is the body and the breath, to tune into the feeling of your body, not just, and I keep saying it also, not just thinking about it, really feeling it. Look how different the quality is between, I can think now about my left foot. I can sit here and redirect my attention and feel my left foot, right?
Well, and apparently that has been shown to increase blood flow to the area,
Yeah, yeah,
which is fascinating. And if we're increasing blood
yeah,
flow, we're increasing oxygen supply.
yes,
I mean,
yes,
just the thought. I mean, that's
yes.
bonkers to me. Yeah,
Again, coming back to the power of the mind, everything
yeah,
starts in the mind. Yeah. And
yeah,
now I like those anchors, because let's say someone says, oh, but the to-do list won't be done, but I have to do things. I have a lot of things to do. And even I get sometimes into it. I'm like, okay, I have no time for my meditation. And then the people who are close to me, they ask me, even my fighters, they're like, coach, let me ask you a question. When was the last time you meditated? I'm like, why? What? It's
yeah.
like, yeah, you
They
know,
can tell.
you're kind of on the edge. Right. But that's what does it tell you? So many years of practices, and I have to engage in the practices, because the brain is extremely plastic, right? The neuroplasticity towards positive and negative really
Yeah,
quickly,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Use it or lose it, right? You have to use certain brain circuits, and you have to keep them going in order to maintain a certain state and a certain ability and a certain skill. So yeah,
yeah.
we
No.
anchor in breath and body. That is definitely the first thing I do, and honestly, I come always back to the breath, because that's what the podcast is about. uh, I mean, you, like I said, awareness of breath and conscious breathing. If you don't learn anything else, then that's already a tool set for almost everything you can do,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, oh yeah, sorry, because I was thinking, I was talking about, sorry, a quick jump, but I was talking about the people who say, okay, the to-do list won't be done. You know what I always say then? All right, but if you are completely out of your mind the whole day, and you're in stress, right? And you, let's say, in sympathetic dominance the whole day, right? Your cognitive functions are, of course, not on their highest, right? If you want to be, let's say, you want to be so productive, right?
Yeah.
That's a questionable thing already, right? If we need to always be productive, but let's say we want to be productive for certain reasons, right? Okay, let's see. Just you want to perform at your best. How do you perform at your best? When your cognitive functions, when your prefrontal cortex is actually really switched on. It won't be switched on when you're in sympathetic dominance, right?
Yeah.
So even if you don't like to sit, when you understand the science, when you understand how the brain works, you know that it's necessary
Yeah.
to do those resets. It's necessary to align yourself, to ground yourself, right?
Yeah.
Then also, and a lot of my clients, of course, then after a while they know it, they're like, oh my God, I'm so much more productive. I did everything a little bit slower, but much more focused, and because of this I'm more productive. And there's this sentence I love, Jack, I love it. Slow down to speed up.
Yeah.
Right? And that's exactly it, right? All of us, we're running around like little headless chickens.
Yeah.
And when you understand, you slow down to speed up, it's exactly this.
Yeah.
Take your 5 minutes, 10 minutes of anchoring yourself, aligning yourself, regulate your nervous system, bring your mind and your body into alignment, right? Be present, and then clear your mind in a way, not like that you do not have thoughts, but clear your mind, like really, okay, observe your thoughts and then redirect their attention where you want it to be, and not like a headless chicken everywhere, right? And then go back into life, and you will see you slow down, you speed up extremely. And it's the same for fighters in the fight. You sometimes have to say, slow down, look at it, focus on the target, right? And then you shoot the target. That's in fighting, in life, it's the same thing.
Yeah. There's
Before shooting, sorry, but before shooting, exhale, slow down, then shoot the target. It's a universal rule.
Yeah. There's an Irish poet philosopher that he's not with us anymore, but I love it. John O'Donoghue says something around the slowing down thing. He describes he was from the west of Ireland, where everything's a little bit slower and a lot of nature, and there's time for things and a different perspective of time, he would describe. And he would say, like, when you slow it down, that's really when you find your rhythm. And then when you find your, and I think this similar thing is it's that same process. Something that I've found and got to, and I'm very grateful, because it's the meditation practice has been, yes, me using the breath as an anchor, and I guess I've known how to do that, but the bit I wanted to explain around what to do with those thoughts and how to focus your attention where you want to is what I've learned literally directly from you. And I say I've quoted you a number of times when I'm explaining this to people, so we'll hear it firsthand from you in a second. There's the thing that I've noticed on that for me is that there's these different stages to it, where it's like, I don't want to meditate, and then finally, like, okay, I want to try, but you still find it hard, and then you go through. I've been like slipping through this phase where I know that when I do it, I'm better. Like you say, I can be more tough. I can think more clearly. I'm just in control. I am better as a human when I do that in the morning. And then, like, if like I've got today like a particularly busy day, then it's beneficial for me, and I know it, and I'm now more pulled towards wanting to go, right, once we've done this podcast, I've got a break before I'm then coaching, that I need to and will want to, and it might just be 2 minutes, but it might be 5 minutes, whatever it ends up being, but it will be carve that out, because I know that I'll then be better for doing it. And I've noticed that one particular thing that's been fascinating for me is the more I do create time for stillness, the more creative, in terms of like ideas and good ideas and creative ideas that I have. And I know there's plenty of science to explain why that is the case. I've just found it. There's one thing like reading or someone telling you about scientific study around brain function and nasal breathing or meditation, how it affects, delta brainwaves and what have you. But there's another thing in literally having some resistance to doing it, going through and doing it, and eventually getting to the point then when you're like, okay, I'm feeling it. But I'm still a little bit at that point where if it is really, really busy and I get a bit upregulated, a bit agitated, and the to-do list feels a bit like it's getting too big, I'll still at that point, I've still got that ability to be, at the moment, that poor ability to be like, oh, I haven't got time to do it. I need to crack on. So I can still slip into those bad habits sometimes, but I'm getting that better awareness to be like, I think awareness is there's probably something inside of me that's changed, and that like I feel like I actually want to. And for anyone that doesn't feel like that they want to meditate, but they're thinking about it, I would just encourage you to go through that phase where it doesn't feel natural, normal. You don't even feel compelled to do it. Almost make yourself do it a
Yeah.
little bit to start with. But yeah, because there's a quote from the Dalai Lama that I love where he says if he meditates for an hour every single day in the morning. I don't know if this is a true quote or it's a joke, but the quote is that he meditates for an hour every single morning, and if he has a really really busy schedule one day, he meditates for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, I
Yeah.
love that.
Yes, because you need the brain is like the brain is apparently right one of the most complex things in the universe from what we know so far. Probably there are more complex things, who knows? But and it's a genius, but you have to work with it. You have to really work with it, and that's why I don't call even always meditation, because some people have like this still like, oh, I don't know what meditation really means. But mental training, mental skill training, everybody gets it, right? Physical skill training, you go train your body, and you have to train your mind. And that is something that's exactly it, right? Because the base of everything is the mind. The workings of your mind and the brain will decide over your destiny, over everything you do. Everything will be influenced by the baseline. Let's say you start in the morning, right? You set a baseline with that, and depends where you start, that's how your day will unfold, right? Because that's how your performance will unfold. And that's why we need to work on that. And I think now it's a great time. It's a really great time because the research is out there. A lot of people are really, really interested in, look, Huberman, what he's done, right? My hero.
Neuroscience.
He just brought neuroscience to everybody, and it's beautiful. And just the fact how many people are interested in it, it shows that we understand now. All right, it's the mind, the brain, the nervous system. We need to learn about that. Similar like about our body. I think in schools actually we should learn about all of it. Not
Well,
person.
so in terms of training the mind and training our attention, I've been teasing people to say this is we want to get it firsthand from you. The thing that I found most helpful was when you explained about using the, like I'd always heard, like using the breath as an anchor, fine, like when you lose your attention, bring your attention back to the breath, and it would be like, okay, I sort of get that, I get that, but when I'm doing it, it's like, no, my attention's gone, I'm having all these thoughts. More like what I learned from you is what to do with those thoughts. And you gave this is what I want you to explain to people. You gave me this this analogy or this example of when you're holding a pen and observing it and then putting the pen down. Explain, rather than me butchering how you explain it. You explain that. How do people deal with those thoughts? And that example, sometimes I don't use a pen, I use a different object, but the principle, explain. This is so, I just wanted to, like, this has been one of the most, if you can I think you explain it so simply that this can be such a powerful thing for the people. The next 5 minutes for people is going to change their life. I'm excited. It will.
So we talk a lot about we are the awareness, and thoughts, emotions, and images arise in awareness. But what does that mean? Because when we are going along in our daily life, the thoughts are just coming, emotions are there, right? It feels like it's you. And because nobody explains us that, we feel the whole life, all my thoughts, it's me, all my emotions is me, all my body sensation is me. But now we can learn to understand that you are the awareness and things arise in awareness. And what I explained to you with the pen, like let's say I have here, because I don't have a pen here now. But damn, we do some Apple advertisement now. Right. But let's say, okay, I have an object.
I like the phone as an example, because the phone is a distraction. Isn't it though? I think that then becomes a good example.
All right, let's take the phone then. All right. Here you can see the phone. You can see it. So you can describe it. Okay, it's this kind of phone. It's has this kind of shape. Maybe there's some colors here. You can describe it. You can, right? This is the phone and this is you. How do you know it? Right? That you are not the phone, right? You know it because you can touch it. You can observe it really, yeah,
Yeah.
as an entity that is not you.
Yeah.
Right? Now, when we close our eyes now, let's say, think about an apple. Bring an apple into your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you see the apple, you see the shape. Is it small or big? What color does your apple have?
Mine's green.
Yeah. Is it maybe a half one, or is a whole apple? Right? Is it maybe lying on something? Is it just floating in the air, or is it on something on a
It's hanging
on
from a mine's hanging from a branch.
yeah, right? So, all right, open the eyes again. So now you know, like that apple that brought you, you know that you're not the apple, right? Usually, you know,
Yeah.
you created that apple in your awareness, yeah, because you could just now observe the apple.
Yeah.
Yeah, you created that images in your mind, or your brain and your mind created that image with right with what it does, and you could observe it. So what does it mean then? What does it mean if you can observe it? That you're an entity, you're an awareness behind, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to observe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is with all of our thoughts. We can learn exactly that, right? And that's how you learn. Like, because if I can close my eyes and watch the train of thoughts and images I have right now, let's say I see you now, I see the apple. What else? I see my dog, right? This is a random stream of things coming on, images and thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Words. If I can watch it, I know I'm the entity, the awareness, that is not the thought,
Yeah.
right? Or the emotions. Things come, we're the vessel, right? And all those things come and go through this awareness, into the awareness, right?
Yeah.
And I think once you understand that really, and you train it every day, and you get kind of good in that, because it takes some time, because you always come back with over identifying, right?
Yeah.
This is what means to disidentify from your thoughts and your emotions, right?
Yeah.
And even from pain, from physical pain, right? We
Yeah.
teach that to athletes, to see the physical pain. Okay, you are the awareness, and there's some pain arising in the awareness. Of course you feel it. Of course that thought is not great sometimes. Of course that emotions, you feel it and it's painful, right? But you're
Yeah.
still the vessel for it,
Yeah.
right? And things come and go, and with that, you can treat them as objects.
Yeah.
Same like the phone, same like the apple you
Yeah.
created, right? More,
Yeah.
let's say, more complex thoughts and feeling states.
Yeah. Because I think
Once
it's
Mhm.
just that it's quite the idea of like observing thoughts and letting them go is far more abstract, whereas the analogy you gave of like holding the phone or holding the pen and observing it, and by observing it you know you aren't it, it's not an extension of your hand, you know it's separate to you, that
Yeah.
for me, and then going, and then when you go, and that's the same process, a little bit more abstract with thoughts, but it's the same process, was just a light bulb for me of like, right, so when bringing my focus back from a thought to my breath, that
Yeah.
gave me like a tool to dissociate from. It
Yeah.
sounds dead obvious now, but I'm sure
Yeah.
there'll be some people being like, yeah, that's obvious. But there'll be other people listening that will be having that light bulb moment of going, right, that's the mechanism of how to do it, rather than just being told, oh, bring your awareness back to your breath. It's like, yeah, but my
Yeah.
mind's racing with all these
Yeah.
thoughts. Then just
Yeah.
the simple act of observing them, nothing more than that. As soon as you observe it, you're the observer. You can't observe it without being the observer,
Yes.
and that for me has been, yeah,
Exactly that. And that is what we mean without changing the relationship to it, right? This is the perspective shift, right? And then what you said, like, because that's then the next step we're teaching, right? To redirect your attention. Attention is the spotlight, right?
yeah,
But you need still to bring awareness to what is, right? Then you step out and you observe, and then you redirect your attention. You won't believe it. Just before I came on this talk, I made an Instagram video about this.
Oh, really? There you go.
You will see I have even the same shirt on, obviously, when I post it the next days, right? Just about this, right?
Right.
What does it mean really to change the relationship to the content of our mind? Because we all hear it, but we don't know exactly how to do it, and we don't know exactly what does it really mean,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
So the next step is then coming back to redirect your attention, right? Your attention is your superpower, right? Whatever you put your attention on it, that will come into your consciousness, right? Those are the information. I put my attention now on you. So you and everything around this, what we're doing now, is the information that will reach my brain. I don't want to pay attention to you. Let's say I look at the tree, and this is an ability, right? Now to bring my attention there and to keep my attention there. Next superpower, right? So away, let's say, from sometimes negative thoughts and feelings, to redirect this attention. First, knowing, okay, those are objects, they arise in awareness. Now, let's feed our brain with more helpful information, right? Let's create a better state for us, right? Let's in a way, like, okay, let's use our attention to feed our brain with something better. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I absolutely love it, and I was very excited to. We haven't spoken for a little while, and so I was excited to have you on to the podcast because I think that the between breaths and exploring all things about the breath has been something that is an ongoing journey for me, and the breath has been a starting point for many things, and one of those has been a meditation practice that is life-changing. And the way my brain works is I need to understand something, and what you, I think, do beautifully well is, as well as a number of things, but is make something that seems quite abstract rational for us to be able to understand it. So I can then literally later today, I hope that people will sit and soak it in and process that a little bit, and then try it out, like put it in place. And I'm sure there must be, if people want, like, guidance from you in terms of, is there things that they can listen to, get guided by, like how if someone's like, right, I like what Daria's saying, I need to do a bit of work with her, like how can people connect with you?
Of course, always on Instagram, Daria Albers. There's just one Daria Albers.
Good. There's only one.
Or of course the email is dariaannaalbers@gmail.com. They can contact me, of course. I have also the Mindful Athlete program. That's my course. I teach it one-to-one, but I also have an automated online version, so the self-contained version that people can also do. Of course, that's a little course about mental performance skills. I think that are most important. If you never read a book, if you don't want to learn anything else, that's a course, I think, which is very suitable for everybody. A lot of athletes use it also, and they like it a lot. It's very helpful for them.
So they can work through that at their own pace. And I highly recommend heading over to as a minimum, head over to Daria's Instagram, and I'll put the link in the show notes. But equally, if you are invested in your mental performance as a starting point, that online course is highly recommended. So
because if you don't remember anything else, like remember that everything starts in the mind and in the brain, right? That's the base for everything. And like I said, and from this we shape our destiny, and we shape everything around us. And when we work on ourselves, right, when we do engage in self-care, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, then we do something good for the world, because we will be kind of good people. When we balance, when we're in peace, we will bring the good to the people, we'll bring the love to the people. And that definitely is, for me, always important to share.
No, beautiful. I think I certainly feel the love that you have for everyone and the world. And a big one from me is a big thank you, but also a big keep doing what you're doing, and it's it's powerful. It's meaningful. It's necessary, and I think that I'm excited. I don't know whether it's. I'm excited to see how you said you're 39. I remember being 30. I'm only 1 year older, but that I can see for you a potential evolution, whether you want to or not, is going beyond the contact sports into affecting everyone and anyone, like with the breathing that we do.
Yeah.
Everyone's breathing, so everyone is going to benefit from breathing better.
Yeah.
Everyone's got that racing mind and everyone has
Right.
thoughts, so understanding them is going to be beneficial for every single person on the planet. So I guess um, I'm
Thank
looking forward to seeing the evolution of Daria, where it's not just the UFC
you.
that benefit
Yeah.
from your love and your wisdom.
Thank you very much. It really inspires me. It's also like I feel the love you have on, and I think all of us have to hear that sometimes, right? Because
Yeah,
we all struggle sometimes. We all question, right? We have
yeah,
those moments where we don't feel it great, although
yeah,
apparently things go well, and then sometimes you don't feel it like this. So
yeah,
it's, I think it's also important, right, to share that, how
yeah,
much, like, I love your content, right? I love it. I always listen to you, and I when I find it well, I really comment also under it. I support you, you support me, and I think that's how we build the community, right? That's, we
yeah,
all feel better. And sometimes also we have to call each other out. We're like, hey, I disagree on this, let's discuss it, right? Or there's nothing to it, right? Or let's say, I think we could do it even better, right? We
yeah,
need to work together and exchange our knowledge, our wisdom, or sometimes our stupidity.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No, definitely. Oh, and at some point in the future, our physical paths will cross again. I know we met in London. I
yeah,
don't know, a year or so ago, probably maybe even more scary. Um, that we've got to do. We've got to do some workshops together.
that would be
I think,
amazing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that will happen, I'm sure. So
yeah.
listeners, keep an eye out and a lookout for that. So once again, Daria, thank you so much for being on the Between Best podcast, and yeah, I hope everybody is not just benefited and enjoyed listening, but actually like an actionable step of like go and maybe you might need to listen to it again and make a couple of notes, but then go and engage in your own little space and little place to be a bit more mindful.
Yes.
So there we have it. Do give Daria a follow on Instagram if you don't yet. She puts a lot of very helpful and useful information on that's going to help you and me with our mindsets and with taking on challenges. And I hope that you've learned a number of things, or I hope at least you've learned one thing, and maybe encourage you to write that thing down, and so that you don't forget it, that you can implement into your daily life about how you take on challenges, how you think about your own mind. And I think this one goes really nicely alongside um, last week's podcast with Andrew Tracy, where we were talking a lot about mindfulness and meditation. So I'm really glad that these two episodes have come out together, and I would really, really love to hear what you think of it. So I'll get in touch on Instagram. It's a great place to do that. Drop me a DM, or please, love you to share the podcast, just so that it can get out to more people, as well as maybe when you share, if you share it, tag me on Instagram so I can see it. David.Jackson. David.Jackson.Jacko, is that right? I don't even know I'm sure you know my Instagram handle. And yeah, let us know what you thought of it. And then finally, if you haven't ever done, and this is maybe the first time you've listened to the podcast, if you subscribe to whether it's on every single podcast platforms, whether that's Spotify or Apple Tunes or whatever it's called, you know what I mean. Wherever you listen to your podcast, if you subscribe, then you get to not miss any episodes. It also helps me to grow the podcast, which will help me get on more amazing guests like Daria. So please do subscribe, and if you're kind enough to spend just a couple of minutes, maybe 1 minute, writing a little review of the podcast, that also helps with the growth of the podcast too, and I massively appreciate that. And I massively appreciate your time and your ear listening, or if you're watching on YouTube, your eyes as well as your ears watching. So thank you very much for listening, for subscribing, being part of what I'm trying to do with this journey of exploring what goes on between our breaths. I'm Jacko. You've been listening. Until next time, keep it nasal.